Welcome to the conclusion of the 34th iDate conference in Los Angeles. In this particular case, the mobile conference, the mobile dating industry conference. And this time we're bringing in more of our family in here to discuss what happened at the event. With me is Kevin Fang from Mox Media, Steve Dean from Dateworking, and Marc Brooks.
You remember me?
Silence.
Okay, good.
The first one was Danny Provenza with HTC. What did you guys think of that?
The main takeaway I had from the HTC session was if you're a developer of apps, you really should be going and checking out the HTC Developer Conference, also the Samsung Conference. So there's a couple of conferences that these guys put on, which for HTC and Samsung being major players, we really need to be attending their developer conferences as well. So there's actually ways that we can get onto the phones beyond and get promoted on these phones, especially if we're using the functions which are unique to these phones.
Samsung appeared on the second day, and there's some pretty heavy hitters that were in the audience from Samsung. Marc, you reviewed last year and the Q1 and Q2 of mobile. What were the major points on that?
I was quite surprised by is that Apple is actually growing again as an iOS. We all know Android is bigger than Apple at this stage. There's more devices with Android running on them, but iPhone continues to monetize far better, and that makes a lot of sense because they're higher earners. So the trick is to focus on the iPhone, and Android users are generally not going to monetize as well, but you're still going to have Android. BlackBerry, meanwhile, is in steep decline, unfortunately. It doesn't look like there's much hope there. And then HTC and Samsung are the next players down the list, really, but they're also running Android.
Steve, did you concur with Marc's conclusions of that?
Yeah, having worked at a mobile design development shop, I've seen that people are increasingly saying, or even we're just recommending, if you're going to build an app, you might as well build iOS first, simply because you're going to immediately get really good feedback from active users. You're going to have, it's the easiest way to monetize, simply because the users are much more willing to pay. It depends on where you are, though, because if you're in India, the iOS market's very weak in India compared to the Android market. Android is absolutely huge, and like when we get clients coming out of India, we tell them, we usually say, oh, you might want to go iOS first, and they're like, what are you thinking? No, you got to go India. I mean, if you're in India, you have to do Android. But if you're in the US building, it generally makes the most sense to just stick to iOS.
CEO therapy.
Yeah, Alex at AtThePool basically wants his site and soon-to-be app to allow, he wants it to be the easiest way to meet people, period. So the idea is kind of like expanding your social network via local. So you have all these people nearby who may or may not share interests with you. He's going to find the ones that do based on what interests that you state, and then immediately say, this is the person you should be meeting right now because you share this interest with them, and you're clearly looking for someone, you want to meet someone nearby who has that interest. So it's like a very strong, or a social discovery site, really, where you can immediately meet people nearby who share interests. I spoke to the CEO of Whoat, and I really like the concept. There's so many times when you have so many contacts, and the people you meet have so many contacts, and you never really know who the other person knows.
That's what Whoat's business model is, trust building.
Well, it's not so. I don't even know if I would call it trust building. I would say it's saving you so much time. Because like if you, let's say you know 10 people, the top 10 people I want to know, I have no way of knowing that unless I'm going through every person I know on LinkedIn and seeing if they know the people that I might want to meet. And then it just takes so much time to do that. Whereas Whoat, as soon as you link up with someone via your contact lists, you can immediately see, if I want to make intros to 10 different people, it'll say, oh, like, Marc knows these 10 people. Would you like to ask Marc to make these introductions for you? And so
doesn't like LinkedIn and Facebook do that already now? When I connect with someone on LinkedIn, automatically the first thing it says, hey, here's some other people you should connect with.
It says some other people, but they don't necessarily, like, in Whoat, I'm specifically saying, I want to find a software developer from HTC. The minute I connect with you, if you know a software developer at HTC, it's going to say, ask him to introduce them. So like, that's really making these introductions so much easier, so much kind of like, it just pops out at you.
Model promoter. Dating hype.
He's a very talented speaker, actually. He was really talking about how we should be educating our users to bear in mind the level that they're at, essentially. He had a model where he was saying that everybody's on a floor, there's 10 floors, where are you? So I think an easy way to do this is put your photograph on Hot or Not and see exactly how you score. That'll give you your floor, right? So he's saying that people that are a 7, well, they can shoot a floor or 2 above perhaps, but they've essentially got to raise their game significantly if they're going to shoot for more than a couple of floors above them. So it was a real kind of the humanity and the kind of blast of reality of the dating world, and he's pretty clued in on that. He's actually got a course which he's selling to people, and I think it's a good way for us to help reset the expectations of our users, so eventually, hopefully, they're a little bit more happy with our services. We're really weak on content, so it was nice to hear that he's got some options for us.
Mobile dating focus group with Julie Spira. So this was a focus group where Julie Spira had acquired several actual users of dating apps with no connection to the dating industry. And we gave them premium access to various dating apps. And then we said, hey, come on in and give us your opinions, as brutal and as frank as they were. That's what the dating operators and the mobile dating operators wanted to hear. So what did they say that was shocking?
I thought it was great. They provided a lot of the same feedback that I would be providing. As I've used over 100 apps, so I'm always thinking about these same concepts. Like, what is it? How easy is it to go on a date? What is the conversion rate? If I message 50 people, how many are going to reply? And so to hear people kind of give their experience and have that corroborate what I've been experiencing over the last several years, it was pretty nice. And I think I heard just from feedback from other people at the event, they were saying like, oh wow, like it's so nice to finally have like real users talking about their experience, and like since it's a couple of them rather than just one person, you know that if they're each corroborating each other, then it gives you as a dating site operator how users are approaching these sites and apps, and how they're like, what are their feelings as they go through the experience.
There was mixed reaction to Tinder, wasn't there? Really?
It was funny because two of the girls were speaking a lot about their experience on Tinder, and one of them I think had gone on maybe like between 0 and 1 dates as a result of it, and the other one was like, I don't know what you're doing, I was on about 30.
Yeah, they had it for like 2 months.
Yeah, so it was just kind of funny how like even everyone says like dating's always so much better for women, but in this case the one girl who had I guess a good experience on Tinder seemed, I guess her standard is just like, I want to meet lots of people and I want to get to know a lot of people, and so she was able to very quickly do that.
And they mentioned that it was more a game at some level. It was kind of an amusement for them.
What about
to
the
use
guys?
the app.
The guys there were 2 guys that used the app, right?
Yeah,
So what
I
did
think
they say?
I only heard from the one guy. His perspective was basically that it's like a glorified hot or not, and that it's really hard to actually meet people off of it, because even once you're matched, it's still like you don't usually anticipate these people wanting to meet up. Like they want to do the matching and have fun with that, but when you ultimately get down to saying, okay, let's meet up, then chances are you're already buried like 50 people deep in their list of people they matched to, and at that point they don't even really want to talk.
Okay.
We also talked about video dating, and how that might work, how that would be well received, and they seem to think that it would be best to just have a recording so that people can see what people really look like, for one thing, because you know people put up old photographs, but at least with a recent video they can see how somebody moves and what they really look like. That seemed to be how they concurred would be the best way to use video.
Scott Lewallen, the CEO of Mezic, he's the guy who actually is the co-founder and designer of Grindr, from my understanding. So what happened there?
He put together a very great presentation. It was basically explaining how you should approach design when you're thinking about whether it be getting users engaged, getting them interested, getting your product to come across to them in like the way that you want it to. And he had like just 7 very clear points of like, this is what you need to be thinking. This is what your users, like if you really want to appeal to the user, you should be doing these 7 things in order to get them really like enjoying your product, addicted to your product in some ways, sharing it with their friends. Basically, it was just a really well thought out thing, taking into account all of his experience with design over the last several years.
Suzuki from Medley.
There's a great tip he made about when you're driving traffic, make sure you know what carrier it's coming from. So, for example, Metro PCS doesn't convert very well, and that's because it's pay-as-you-go. You know, it's prepaid rather. So the prepaid carriers don't tend to convert very well for internet dating. I thought that was a fantastic tip.
So while we had this conference as well, at the same time, we also had something called the Viral Summit, because a lot of, especially mobile startups, are very interested in viral marketing. So we added the Viral Summit. What made this conference very, very hard for me to prepare was I set one rule, one standard to speak at the event. That threshold that I set was you had to have actually done something that went viral. And as long as you did that, then you can speak. So one of the speakers was Alexander Debelov from Virool.
I'm actually a paid traffic expert, and usually I write off most organic means of generating traffic. And actually, I thought Alex's presentation was great. And the reason for that is because if you're trying to rank a page on Google, that's very difficult because it's very saturated. I think there's close to 1 trillion index pages now. But using video And even though the session's called Video Viral Methods, he actually gives you a pretty solid strategic way of getting a decent amount of hits that are all organic using YouTube. So, I mean, basically, he goes over all the basics of making a great video, right? So, amazing, shocking, funny. This isn't really new, but the actual, the actual methodology, of doing the video SEO, I thought that was pretty cool. So, putting the keyword, in your headline tag, in your body copy. I actually even know this, but YouTube actually has their own keyword tool that's different from Google AdWords. So you can actually figure out what keywords are getting volume and what to go after. And he also gives a lot of cool tips, like for example, like the Google algorithm actually will record the first 10 seconds of the video and pull out keywords based on what you're saying to rank your video. Also some basics like using a high CTR thumbnail, eye-catching thumbnail, aka. So I thought the content for just getting free traffic, which everyone is a fan of, was excellent in this session.
When you upload to YouTube, now you can create your own thumbnail and upload it and say, no, I don't want one of those 3 thumbnails what you choose randomly. I want my own picture. And it doesn't even need a picture for actual video itself. You can actually put in whatever you want. Also, I always do this, but a lot of people don't know this. When you name the video, and you upload the video, make sure that the name of the file also contains the keywords. A lot of people just put in sanyo0246.mpeg. A lot of that was based on SEO. One thing he didn't mention, which I knew also with video marketing as well, if you do a search for a particular term or a particular word or long tail keywords on Google itself, just go to Google and then just do a search on, I don't know, dog collars or something like that. If videos appear as part of the top 10 Google searches, then that is a reason why you should be doing a Google video, YouTube video.
That's powerful, right? Because kind of building upon that, any person who knows anything about SEO, the first 2 rankings get 80% of the traffic. So as you've probably noticed, when you actually search for something on Google and it gives you video results, they're actually in the top 2 listings, which is essentially an easy way for you to hijack organic keywords.
But there's also sometimes you can actually, if you test this, you'll find actually that sometimes multiple videos appear as Google results as well. So the more videos that appear as a Google search, then that's telling you that you should be doing videos for this. There's no question on it. If there's no videos there, then that also suggests perhaps either there just is no video content for this, which would mean that really nobody's searching on it either. So we had a party that night at Tai's house again, the 4th year, I think it was the 4th year we've done it. A lot of business got done.
It was just a great event.
It was a great
nice
party.
Yeah.
Again, thanks to Tai. Thanks to Tai for the party. But,
I just want to say, I go to AdTech, Affiliate Summit, all those. My first iDate was actually the last one in Vegas, and between that and the mud fight, and I really mean this, probably the 2 coolest events by a pretty big margin that I've been to.
Yeah, it was a true California party. That's about as good as it can get.
I had a great time.
That's it.
I liked the Uber credit we got to get there too.
So thanks to Uber, $20 off for first-time users. That was very nice.
Steve, first time you gave a presentation at iDate. At some points you mentioned what you thought the costs were to produce an app these days, a native app. And I think they were a little overinflated.
I purposely overinflated some of them because making a dating app is different from making one of those like list apps or something that's not that complex. Chances are, if you're trying to make a successful dating app now, you have to go almost toward the Tinder route, where you actually have to put in a lot of like really hardcore UI UX elements to get your users engaged, get them interested, and prevent that rapid drop-off that you see in the industry.
The other thing too is you really impressed with Tinder in terms of their sign-up process. You just one-click, bang, your profile's included, everything. There's no real, you don't have to enter credit card or nothing like that. It's all just done, and that was impressive. But it seems to me, after doing this event for so many years, that Tinder may be just the flavor of the week. You know, they got something that's working now, but is it really, really the long-term thing?
I would never say that Tinder is the ideal dating app. It's by no means the ideal dating app. What it is, it has the ideal sign-up process. When you are thinking of like what is the easiest way to get users, if you want to prevent the bounce, like usually users will sign onto your app, and if they can't make an account within like 4 minutes, then like I've seen some apps take upwards of like 15-20 minutes to actually sign up, do all your stuff before you can finally start using the app. Tinder reduces that to 1 minute. And if you can do that, like that should be always the goal when you're doing any app.
Last year at the dating focus group, that was Tinder didn't exist then, but that was the complaint of, we had 6 people actually that were dating users, and they all complained the sign-up process was horrendous.
If I'm typing more than maybe 150 words to sign up for your app, then you've lost me as a customer.
Okay.
I won't even have time to type in those words before I'm either using a different app, getting a text, and then it's gone. I'm not going to bother finishing later, because if you couldn't catch me and I couldn't use your features from the very first point of contact, then, I mean, what value are you? Like, why should I even bother continuing at that point?
Marc, what were your observations on this talk as well?
I think that particular point about using Facebook to sign up, I mean, that's as powerful a signal to this industry as we could ever need. We've tried using Facebook in the past, and I think a lot of people have not been quite at the stage that I don't think users were quite at the stage that they wanted to use it. But that marks a key observation by IAC and a test. They must have been using it to test, really. I mean, they've got the weight to propagate it, but they've tested it. Now, will they use it on Match.com next? I wonder.
Well, I know Facebook was actually in the audience. They brought their dating sort of division down to the conference. USA Today hosted a panel, established large dating sites versus small dating sites or startup dating sites, and how they approach mobile and their strategies.
That was one of my favorite arguments that I've encountered so far.
Alex Mayer is the president of Zusk, and Andrew Weinrich, that's right here. Andrew Weinrich is the chairman of Meetwa. We've now determined that they're pretty much the Siskel and Ebert of the dating industry, that they went into a pretty wild debate. One believes that location-based services for dating, that's Alex, he doesn't really see a future in it, but Andrew Weinrich from Meetwa says exactly the opposite. You know, he sees that's pretty strong. I tend to believe on Andrew's side that location-based services, which I call McDonald's-based dating or instantaneous dating, is going to be here to stay. Alex Mayer, yes, from Zusk says you don't want to do that.
I would qualify, like I talked to him afterwards, and it wasn't that he was saying that location-based services don't have a future. He's absolutely bullish about location-based services. He just doesn't think that if you're an established dating company and your model is not location-based, like if you're, let's say you're eHarmony and you're matching people who don't need to be meeting up that day, that minute, on that corner of the block, you should not just start doing that. You shouldn't even bother pushing for it, because that's not what your users want in the first place. Like, it's not just like everyone who goes location-based is suddenly going to be better off.
The first location-based dating services that really were on the market that I remember that had a successful model were casual dating sites.
That's what I mean. That's the essence of it. If you want to meet someone today to do something, then yes, absolutely, location is important. If you're looking for like someone to fall in love with, someone who you want to like start a long-term committed relationship with, they don't need to be on your block. They can be someone who's 20 miles away. You'll still do it. Like, there are a lot of these sites, like Marc mentioned yesterday, where if you're looking to meet someone from a different country, like obviously, like you can't. It's not location based. It doesn't matter where they are located, because if you want to meet someone who's kind of just compatible with you in the way that you want it to be, whether it be like you want someone from a different country, you want someone who has like a different lifestyle, it doesn't have to be someone nearby. You should, like, a dating site that is based on not caring about location shouldn't just start caring. That's all Alex was saying.
So I just want to add a layer to it. Is I noticed that a lot of new social apps kind of have like a dating undertone, right? So for example, I think Group is a great idea. A great example of this is that the whole idea is that you have 3 guys and 3 girls and you meet up. So it takes a lot of pressure off of the entire scenario. So tying this back into the whole proximity or location base, right? Like with a dating site, it's very jump the gun. It's very get into it off the bat. If we're gonna get straight into it, then location is not as important, right? But a lot of these apps are coming out right now that are more social based. That's important, right? One of Grouper's big things is that they live around you and you're just here to hang out and meet up, and there's a lot less pressure, right? So in essence, it's winning by volume.
Well, I think there was a disagreement between the location being very specific and not being very useful for women. They don't really like the closeness, but I think there was some level of agreement that vicinity makes sense. The general area, because you can go on Zeus and you can see if people are nearby, just not over your shoulder, and that's the scary bit. That's what he was trying to say. I don't think our users are ever going to like the fact that
You could be
you
tracked.
could tap them on the shoulder. That's just not attractive
exactly.
for women.
That's not good.
I mean, that already happens outside the dating space. If you check in anywhere on Foursquare, people can generally catch that. Any public check-in you make, there are apps that catch all public check-ins and display them to their users. So you check in on Foursquare, I don't have to be friends with you on Foursquare. If you do a public check-in, suddenly I my app on a map exactly where you just checked in. I can walk up to you right then and there.
But you know what women do? They check in as they're leaving.
I mean, I do that too.
Yeah, really? Okay.
We also had the panel with you, Kevin, on mobile conversions with GoToMobi and iHookup with Sean Kelly, also with Moonit, okay, and also with Alex Satkin. That was pretty hot. You guys were really going off on ROI and CPA and CPM rates. What happened there?
Obviously, it was the best session in the entire conference. There really aren't too many apps or dating sites that actually have a good paid user acquisition strategy in the mobile space. And this is for a lot of reasons. I mean, number one, it's brand new. Number two, it's changing. And then number three, it's incredibly different from the web space. So the big takeaway from that is you have more variables to account for now. It's no longer just creative and placement. Now you have creative and placement and mobile OS, device, platform, et cetera, et cetera. We basically covered, the basics of mobile tracking, stomach, how much money can I lose before I see before I see some sort of turnaround. Is if you want to test just a couple of variables, be ready to invest a couple $1,000s on each variable. One variable being, figuring out the handsets. One variable being, what kind of landing page am I going to use?
My understanding, I researched a lot about mobile advertising, and what I saw was, a real basic to bare bones test campaign is $10,000, and realistically, a real test campaign is $25,000. And in the dating industry, that especially for a startup, that has a real sticker shock value. A lot of the dating apps that I see that are starting off, mobile marketing or ad spend is out of the question for them. They're going for viral, they're going to try and get press coverage and things like that. Yet the larger brands, Friend Finders or Cupid, guys like that, they're going, hey, let's just throw money at it and start getting users right away. So it seems to me that there's almost this kind of fight between this viral SEO versus PPC kind of thing. Going
the example I use right now is Cupid, actually, because they've actually done a phenomenal job in establishing their metrics and kind of being ahead of the curve in developing their apps as well as their sites. And they're actually able to go in right now and evaluate on an ROI basis, right? What can I pay for a user? Basically it's cost benefit. And they can actually give me $5,000 and they can tell me how much money in ROI that produced, which is a very effective and scalable user acquisition strategy, right? Because now they can figure out, essentially, if you can break even on your ad campaign, you win.
And this is actually an important question, which we forgot to ask even at the final panel. How much is a mobile dating user worth? In the case of online or web-based, we know that the user's worth generally between $40 to $80. That's 2 to 4 months, the average being $60. Assume it's $20 a month. So we know that's roughly what a user's worth. What is it worth in mobile?
I can actually give you real stats right now. Our top advertisers, for a pay per sale, they'll pay me for an actual paid sale about $25 to $35 PPS.
And
That's not the going rate.
But what do they view that customer's worth?
So scaling ROI for both an advertiser and as a media buyer, a good scaling ROI is about 30%.
Meaning?
ROI.
In other words, they're paying you 25, it's worth 30% more than that?
Exactly. That's their margin. That's kind of what they're shooting for. So for example, Fling or Global Personnel's media, right? So we work with them very closely and, they tell me basically that they're shooting for that 30%. So
okay,
does
so
that
they're paying
make
you
sense?
So they're paying you $25. They see that the value of the mobile dating user is worth $40.
Yeah, just to throw some round numbers out there. Exactly. Yeah.
I would say it really depends on what your service is. If you're a subscription-based service, I can imagine that your users are worth a lot more than if you are an ad-based service where an individual user could be worth, anywhere from $5-6 compared to $30-40.
Right, but most of the mobile dating apps right now are freemium-based.
Yes.
Most of them.
Yeah.
So they are relying on in-app purchases and subscriptions, but with your subscription in that case, in a lot of cases, is an in-app purchase.
Yeah, Mike, with Absalon, that was a good presentation. It's a mobile ad market, $21 billion by 2016. Right now it's at $4 billion. And that's what we see with Mary Meeker's, there's a famous slide that she's pushed out recently, which shows that 15% of media is being consumed on mobile at this stage. It's just far under for what it should be for the ad market. So that poses a wonderful opportunity right now. That basically, what she's basically saying is that we should be paying a lot less than on this particular media than any other media per install. The thing is, it's all very muddy right now. We've not figured out the metrics. You know, we don't know how much we can spend really, and then the sites are still figuring out how to monetize specifically.
All right, last is final panel. It was a pretty big panel. I had some people we haven't had in years, had some people we never had. It went in the spirit that we wanted, which was to show a far differentiation of opinion in terms of how dating sites both view the industry and view mobile.
I think it's the most lively and interesting panel we've had in a while. There's some issues that we have that were really brought to the fore for us to discuss. Abuse, essentially, on Google Android. There's some really great ways to make money on Android right now, and hopefully those doors will be closed fairly soon, but there's a lot of room for abuse, essentially, and that is very bad for the industry on the whole. If they're having a bad experience with an abusive dating service, then that's going to reflect on the entire industry, and it really is a very short-term thing. I mean, churn and burn, essentially, is what he's saying, that some players were churning and burning users and really killing the industry. So as an industry, we need to identify these players and really we either self-police or we lose some of the integrity of the industry. And where are they going to go? Well, they're probably going to go to the more social networking oriented services. We give users good reason to use internet dating, but the more we abuse the market, the more they're going to want to shift to a free or a social networking experience.
As a media buy, this affects me too, because all market price is governed by who can pay the most. So invariably, one way or the other, I'm always bound to the advertiser who can pay me the most. And I'm not going to name names right now, but I'm forced in a sense to work with people that are using less than savory tactics. And while I don't condone them personally, it's a shame, because right now I think the market is, like Sean said, it's the wild, wild west right now, and a lot of people are being burned. Mostly the end user is being burned in the process.
When you guys started pontificating as to what the future of mobile phones were going to look like. It was Sean Christian who said SMS is going to be gone by the wayside. It was Andrew Weinrich who said apps are gone. Native apps that we have on our phone, and then they're going to be gone.
But from end user experience perspective, this is nomenclature. He was talking about having the app sit on the phone. But ultimately, there's still going to be bookmarks. I think they'll still see buttons, but it's nomenclature. Who cares if it's sitting on the phone or it's up in the cloud? From the user perspective, that will eventually be fairly irrelevant.
The question that I got asked a lot when I was working directly in a mobile app development and design studio, people would say, should I go native, should I not? Should I do an HTML5 app so I can touch all devices at once? And basically, I mean, the CEO of Fuel where I worked, he was very clear that right now, native is the way to go. But even in as little as 2 years, there's a good chance that if you look at the trajectory of HTML5 development and how much more you can do on it now than you could even 1, 2, 3 years ago, if you assume that that's going to keep going up, that HTML5 apps will suddenly have more access to the device, maybe you'll be able to send push notifications at some point. If we can get to that point with HTML5, then yeah, why would you ever go for a native app when you can do it through HTML5 in order to get all apps touched using the same one build, all devices
it makes me think, why would Apple want that to happen?
They probably don't. I don't think any device manufacturer necessarily wants that to happen. I would say from the users, users don't even care. I don't care how I'm consuming this app or this content. I just want it to be there. I'd rather it be there all the time, which is why native mobile is the big thing right now, because once it's on my phone, it's always on my phone. If I want to have a photo editing app that's based in the cloud, I need internet connectivity in order to use it. If it's on my phone on a hard device, then I don't need to worry about not being online. I can still do everything I want to do.
So like I said, that this is in terms of this final panel. That was what was covered. What the potential future was.
And I think it's really hard to make any kind of guesses right now because an iPhone didn't exist 5 years.
Exactly.
You can't say that whether it's going to be apps or cloud. It's just it's so hard to know. That's why the only closest things we can point to are Google Glass, new forms of hardware. That's what I said during the panel. I think we have to look to the hardware where that's going, because the software is kind of it's going to follow the hardware.
Right. And the other colorful feature that came on at the final panel was perceptions of how they perceive the dating industry.
Are you thinking from an investment standpoint? We were talking about how there are so few IPOs in the dating space. Was it Sean? He said that you can't expect more than 2.5x for investors. You had this idea of getting 10 or 100x, you're an idiot in the dating space, and that's a problem because how do you get innovation without that kind of really intense drive for the innovation? Usually innovation comes as a result of an intense need or an intense return, And if there are no returns being seen, then where's the innovation going to come from? How do we get innovation in dating to really spice up the industry, make it more than like a $2 billion market? We need to make it, you know, like, why is it only $2 billion? Why is social networking bigger than dating? Everyone wants to be dating. Like, dating is a fundamental human need, is to be meeting other people, getting to know other people. Like, why is it that this is only a $2 billion market? It should be a lot bigger.
One of the best events we've ever had, and I guess the iDate just keeps getting better and better, in my opinion.
This was my first time in LA, ever. First time at this venue. I've seen and heard a lot of things, and I couldn't be happier.
Okay.
Very
It's your
solid,
first
very
full
happy.
conference, right?
Let's do it again next year. We keep
Yeah, of
getting
course.
stronger and learning more. So,
All right, guys. Take care.